This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law. I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey y'all, I'm Molly Barrows and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast, where we cover some pretty scandalous crimes and cases that bubble up here in Northwest Florida and all over the place. And nobody knows that better than Pam Hill. She is our co-host per usual. She's a pharmacist and a victim's advocate. She's experienced violent crime in her own family, and I just love your sage wisdom and advice and your one-liners, Pam. The countrified one-liners are probably the best, I think.
Yeah, you're looking at me, you're looking at country.
And if you're looking at us and you're looking at country and thinking you want to hear more of it, please like and subscribe. We have the YouTube channel, Gulf Coast Confidential, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, you can find us as well. So please do that. But we've got a couple of really interesting cases that we're going to be talking about. One, our main one that we're going to get into is a case that Pam's been following involving a young man. There was a murder in his town. He had a dream that maybe he might have committed it. He wasn't really sure because he was super duper high, apparently, on just a real mix of pills and whatever else. So he ends up making a confession of sorts. The police jump on it, run with it. He implicates himself. He implicates his friends. And this has been going on for years and years and years. So we're going to update you on this. Quite the talker of a case and very confusing, but it's a real whodunit. And the guy who said he done did it, well, it looks like he might not have done it after all.
Who didn't do it?
Right. And is a real murderer out there walking around. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, we want to talk about yet another Florida man case because, you know, Florida doesn't have the, I wouldn't say they've got the grip on all things crazy, but we have a pretty open public records law. So when crazy things happen, you're going to know about it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. And with social media, I mean, it's something every week. Lately, I've kind of in my mind decided there's the Brock Horner School of Cray-Crays, you know, because we have Brock Horner, then we had Mr. Marius Matou, and Brock Horner's screaming at a teenager. Marius Matou is taking down an 11-year-old because he thought she threw eggs at his house and he straddled her. Now, today, we have Tyler Chambers.
And what has Tyler done? Tyler from Tampa.
Mm-hmm, Tyler from Tampa. Tyler, a little black girl, she's 9 years old. Her name is Sincere, and her mother's name is Beyond. They got some cool names.
That's cute.
Yeah, the mom's name is Beyond Shabazz, okay? And they live in the same neighborhood with Tyler. Well, Sincere was selling candy. She was going door to door about 4 p.m. She had her 11-year-old cousin with her. That's their neighborhood, too. And so, you know how kids do. They go back and forth and sell those little skinny candy bars that we all like, World's Finest. And I don't know if that's what she was selling, but she was selling something. And so Mr. Tyler Chambers sees her on his Ring doorbell. And he basically tells her through the Ring doorbell, "You're lucky we're not home because I would shoot your A, you dumb B."
To a 9-year-old girl.
On his porch. And so, but that's awful that he did it. Remember, we always say, or I always say, it ain't that they did it. They do it all the time. They just got videoed this time.
Yeah, now he's feeling the wrath. Like,
right.
I understand that it went viral on social media. I've seen the videos on TikTok, and everybody's talking about it because he was just so ugly, and it was so unnecessary. Much like that same video involving the other man from the St. Petersburg, Tampa area who pinned the little girl, the 11-year-old girl, down because he thought she was egging her house. Who are these men folk who think that it's their right and that they can just push people around, especially children?
Yeah, it makes you wonder what their house is like, what's being inside their home's like. But he has a wife, and her name's Cassidy. She's a lawyer, I think, and they have a 7-month-old baby. Well, also, he said basically that he thought he had to throw the racial undertones and overtones in there because he said, well, he posted it in his like neighborhood thing, like next door type of thing, posted it, and immediately started getting flack back from normal folks, i.e. the rest of us, saying, "What are you doing? This is awful." And he took it down after 14 minutes, but not before it went viral. So also he decided to backpedal like it's an Olympic sport. Okay, he got on there and said, "Well, y'all just don't understand. Her and another child was out there." I don't think he said child, person. He said they were decoys out in my yard.
Decoys?
Decoys because they're going to rob me. And my wife is at home with our 7-month-old baby, and I'm just trying to protect ourselves.
Do we think he might have some mental illness?
We do, or some delusions of grandiosity or something.
Right.
Or
what's he hidden some gold in his house or something nobody knows about?
He just doesn't want certain folks up on his porch. Let's just be real.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. It sounds like he's just stereotyping these young people and basically saying, because you're black, you're going to steal from me.
Right. And you're a little
horrible.
girl. What does he do at trick or treat? Go out there and shoot people in the face? I mean, really?
I don't
seriously.
know. Maybe he hangs out with that pow popcorn murder guy.
He might. But this has infuriated people so much, me being one of them, because and then there's some back stuff too that says, well, she said something to me. And I'm like, bro, you're a grown up. You're the adult. I don't know that she said anything to him. But so anyway, all this is going on, and Sincere's mama, Beyond, is at home at her house, and people are blowing her phone up going, Sincere's all over the internet. All over the internet. And this, you know how mom is. Mom's like, my kid ain't on the internet. And so she goes out and about and figures out what's going on. So by this time, Tyler's trembling. He's like, oh, I want to talk to the parents to say I'm sorry. I didn't handle it. I was just trying to protect my family. Anyway, back. Oh, it just kept going on and on and on. And Beyond got to thinking about that more and more and went like, you threatened my kid with a gun and said she better be glad and that she was a decoy. You have lied and you have basically slandered and all kind of stuff my child. And so now she said, I want meat for you. Hell can freeze over and I want meat for you.
Good for her.
Now it's going on. And like I said, I think his wife is an attorney. I don't know. But now this is what people have to be careful about. And we're all people, okay? Be careful what you say and do on the internet anytime when you're hot. Be quiet for a minute, because now all this, he's being run out of his own neighborhood. And people are saying he works at a car wash, and I don't know if that's true because I found his Indeed page. He may have used to work there, but I think he's in real estate or has his own company now. Now, taking a lesson from Brock Horner, you've just ruined your whole career and all your businesses, your life with your child that's 7-month-old. You can't stay in the house you're in. Nobody wants you there anymore. And his wife is probably so embarrassed. This is all his doing.
I know, he brought it on himself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad people are holding him accountable, but you're right. One lesson to take away from all of these situations that have made the news recently is watch what you say, count to 10, count to 20 before you say anything and open your mouth.
Right,
but
right.
I think, to your point, it's indicative of kind of their BD behavior.
Yeah.
They're being big dickery docs
really.
and deciding that they're in charge and everybody needs to do what they say. And then the internet comes along and is like,
right.
Nope.
Well, every one of these Sir Richards has found a child that they've gone after. And people do not like folks coming for their children. I mean, say that to another grown man, or say that to a grown woman, or say it to policemen, or say it here, there, and everywhere. People cannot talk to children like that. You are the adult. And every time it's the adult that's the aggressor on these. This has been 3 weeks in a row that we've reported on this behavior.
Well, and it does make you wonder if they would talk this way, especially in this case that you're talking about, to a grown man.
No, they wouldn't.
And I feel like that would not be the case.
No.
They do it with people they think they can push around, and I guess that makes them feel like the big man. How pathetic.
Right. Well, and there's a GoFundMe for legal defense now, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And all this is because the fact that he did it is awful enough, but the fact that he felt empowered that he could go put it on the internet, and what's he going to do, circle everybody up and burn the child in effigy?
Well, and it also makes you wonder where he spends his time on the internet. He's probably with like-minded individuals, and he's so immersed in that world that he probably doesn't see anything wrong with what he thinks and what he behaves. Because that's pretty bold to put that out there. And then you get a dose of reality when other people are like, what is this, man? Nuh-uh.
When he's saying, I have a child in my home, apparently he knows a child needs protecting. This is somebody else's child. This is Beyond's child out there. And so it's just like, I'm getting mines and I'm taking care of mines. All you other people can go to hell. And then I'm going to put it on the internet and see if I can find some other people to circle up and be as hateful as I am.
Right. And try to justify it by like, I was worried about my wife who was at home with the kid. I'm like, yeah, that sounds manipulative.
Yeah.
If you were so concerned about, you might be concerned about yours, but you're not concerned about other people's kids.
Right.
And how much of a threat could they have been anyway?
Yeah.
Decoys.
Yeah, decoy. Well, that right there, that was a very unfortunate term to use, because that right there, a good attorney is Miss Beyond is going to enjoy some benefits in life that are going to be courtesy of Tyler.
Yes, and we'll continue to follow that. I appreciate you bringing it up. That's an interesting one. Now let's move on to our main episode of the day. This one's called Keep Your Dreams to Yourself. Did Chuck Erickson falsely implicate himself and a friend for murder? This is a crazy case, Pam. I had not heard about this at all, but it doesn't surprise me that it's drung on for like so many years because it's confusing. But then you take into account that perhaps you've got a prosecutor and law enforcement that are colluding, are the allegations, basically to keep the truth down because they thought they had a confession that they could make stick. But it turns out the person who made the confession is not the most reliable witness, even against himself. So what had happened?
All right, what had happened, this was on Halloween night, 2001. Chuck or Charles Erickson and his friend Ryan Ferguson, they were going out doing what 17-year-olds do on Halloween. They were going out and they were partying and stuff. Not all 17-year-olds, but they were going around, and they ended up at a bar called By George, and Ryan's sister was there. A bouncer had let them in. They shouldn't be getting in. All this stuff. We can go back and see where all this stuff went wrong.
And it's in Missouri.
And so they go in there and then they drink and they run out of money. So it's time to go home then. Okay, so
most people would think so, yes.
Right, exactly. So at about this time, there is a guy, editor, a journalist like you, and he's a sports journalist. His name is Kent Heitholt. And about this time, he's leaving out of work. It's like 2 a.m, leaving out for work. And then these boys, they say, are crossing his path there. Kent Heitholt ends up getting killed. He's beaten and he's bloodied and he's left on the ground by his car.
Oh, how sad.
Yeah. And so this goes on. It's in the parking lot right outside of the newspaper. So this goes on for a while. 2 years pass, and the newspaper puts out an anniversary story and goes, been 2 years and we don't know who killed Kent Heitholt, because it had to be somebody big. He's 6'4", 300 pounds.
Wow.
You know, he's a big guy. He didn't just walk out there and somebody overtake him.
It would have taken a bit of an effort for at least one person to do it, and maybe more than one.
Right, and it was right where he's used to going out to his car. It happened right by his car. So about the 2 years later, Chuck Erickson is looking at the newspaper and he's seen a sketch and stuff and goes, hey, that looks like me. And he's like, he was so drug-addled on, like you said, cocaine, Adderall, and alcohol.
Good gracious.
He decided, because the paper had written it up and said, well, it was 2 people, because as luck would have it, one of the janitors was out there on a smoke break. Her name was Shauna. And then she saw some commotion, and it looked like some college-age kids that were out there. And so she had yelled back in to her buddy, another janitor in the newspaper there, Mr. Trump. His name is Jerry Trump. And he came out, and he didn't get to see them as well. She saw one of them pretty good, and she had given a composite to the police. And so they were out there smoking and carrying on. So they called 911, and all that's written up in the report too. So Chuck decides that was me and Ryan.
Oh my goodness. Well, how did he do that? I mean, did he do it like right then and there so 2 years after the crime happened, he decided, so they do this report and they say, hey, we want to know who killed this person. Like you revisit a cold case.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I have a feeling I'm the person they're looking for.
Yeah. And so I have a feeling I'm the person they're looking for. So I'm going to anonymously call Crime Stoppers.
On himself? Did he try to collect the award?
I don't know. Because
there's usually like a reward if you have information that leads to an arrest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not funny, but it's kind of ridiculous.
Oh, this whole case is like so blundering and stuff. You can't even, but the results of it are horrible.
And
they
also terrible, if these guys really aren't the killers, it's terrible that this crime hasn't been solved and the real killers still walking the streets.
Well, they are. They are still walking the street, because Mike Boyd was a guy that came out with Kent Heitholt about the same time. He was a writer also there. And they said, people had said there was a little bit of bad blood between them. Maybe that Kent didn't give him the time or space to write an article, or anyway, he was upset with Kent. But that's not what he told the police. He said, oh, he's a good guy and carrying on and everything. So he never said anything bad about him. So in hindsight, nobody asked Mike Boyd anything about this.
And so Mike Boyd might potentially have a motive for killing the reporter?
Right. But like I said, nobody, the janitor's over there smoking, and so nobody has asked her anything except for a composite. And so she drew it. Chuck said it's him, and so here we are.
Okay. So how did the police and the prosecutor get to the point where they decided that he for sure was the one? Did they have any other evidence besides his kind of lame confession?
What they did is he gave his confession, and these police were bad guys. They told him, they said, well, so how did you kill Kent Heitholt, since you said you did? He said, I think I used a shirt or a bungee cord, maybe, to kill him. And they're like, no, we know that his belt was used to kill him. And he said, oh, yeah, his belt. Ryan used his belt. He even showed on the stand how the belt they wrapped around like a dummy neck, and he motioned that his foot was on the man's back, and Ryan pulled up on it.
I ask this with all seriousness, and I don't mean it insulting at all, but has this guy been tested for an IQ? Like, I wonder if we're almost dealing with somebody who is incompetent to even testify really for or against himself, because it almost sounds like he was easily led to saying what they wanted him to say.
Right.
And they had somebody who was just almost too simple to think his way in any better than this.
Well, that's a good question, because the answer is exactly opposite of what you thought. He's brilliant.
Man.
He's not stupid.
Wow.
He's brilliant.
No matter how brilliant he is, I don't know that I'd want him to do whatever it is he's good at for me.
Right. He's got a little bit of social awkwardness to him.
Okay.
And when you see the pictures of Ryan, is a good-looking boy and sweet and pretty teeth and appropriate, and
That's his
probably
friend.
and probably was the social emollient he needed to get through life. You know, this is my buddy. And so they asked that, and they ask it many times, because they, you know, sometimes it's people's bravado, saying, oh.
Or maybe he feels guilty about something else, and maybe has problems with, drugs and alcohol, and is feeling guilty about something he may or may not have done, and is attributing it to this event. It just seems strange all the way around. It also comes across a little people-pleasing to me.
To the extreme.
To the extreme. Like,
but he didn't please Ryan.
God, dragging his friend into it.
Yeah.
And his friend's dad, Ryan's dad, has definitely been a champion for him. It sounds like you told me he was renting a plane, basically free Ryan. And it sounds like these efforts really paid off, and media attention ended up being a focus of a national television show, and got a pretty capable attorney involved. And I guess that's when things started to change. It turned the tide. But in the meantime, law enforcement prosecutors got the conviction they wanted in 2005 against Ryan Ferguson, it sounds like.
Right. But before we get to the good attorney, we got to go through the doofus attorney.
Okay, doofus attorney.
He's got an attorney there, and he's from a prestigious law firm. But when he was putting up the maps were mislabeled. When he was showing videos, you couldn't see it or hear it, and everything was awkward. He bored the jury to sleep almost.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Hold that thought, Pam, because now that we're talking about attorneys, I think this is a good time for us to talk about good attorneys. Because when you do need somebody to represent you in a court of law, whether it's a criminal case or a civil case, my thoughts immediately go to personal injury attorney Joe Zarzar, who will fight for you when you need an attorney to fight for you. People who are hurt, often through no fault of their own, would be up a creek without a paddle without a good attorney. And if I needed one, I know who I'd call, and that would be Joe Zarzar, the Zarzar law firm. He's a champion for his clients. He most recently represented a widow whose husband died after a surgeon mistakenly removed his liver. That's a story that we've been following, the case of Dr. Thomas Shiknowski, and we'll continue to follow that. And he has taken on the tough cases many times, and he does what's right by his clients.
Definitely. And he does what's right by Pensacola. He always shows up for all the things in Pensacola, helping certain philanthropies and stuff. And I love Joe so much because he went to school where I went to school. He went to Cumberland at Sanford.
Gosh. Yes, absolutely. That's yet another reason to like Joe. And also he's an advertiser on our show, and we are appreciative of that as well. So anyway, just a shout out to Joe, and we wanted to get back to the story here. So this guy is the doofus attorney, presents some evidence that is not that great, and it can, but apparently it was enough to, I guess, for a jury to convict.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the Ryan's dad, Bill, is sitting there going, I offered to label that map for you, and then he wouldn't do it. And I offered to do this. So they're sitting there going, my kid's going to prison, and he definitely was, because they convicted him. And the Shauna, nobody ever asked her, is the man that you gave the composite, is he in this courtroom?
And I want y'all to see, for those folks who are watching on YouTube, and if you're listening, you can't see it, but Pam has made a homemade sketch, if you will, of what one of the witnesses described, but it's just a smiley face with some squiggles for hair and some goofy eyes and a little like wavy mouth. So at any rate, but to your point, you're right. Like,
it didn't matter.
They didn't even ask the one witness that they had if the composite sketch that she had contributed to matched the people that they charged with the crime. And that might have been for good reason.
Yeah.
Maybe they realized it didn't match.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why the prosecutor didn't do it. Now, that prosecutor, he's a bad guy. He's definitely a bad guy.
In your opinion?
In my opinion. Yeah, my opinion.
And the cops are bad guys too, in your opinion?
In my opinion. These are my opinions. Nobody else's, not even yours.
Well, it's just a way of crossing T's and dotting I's when we're talking about these things.
That's what you're here for.
Right. Yeah, I know, to be the wet blanket.
Definitely. Well, and
the attribution queen.
Right. I put on there that I put on there, who dis? Because this man doesn't even know it's him for 2 years, Chuck. But I know that the prosecutor didn't ask because, like you said, the answer. But the defense attorney could have asked, but he didn't ask because he didn't take any time to prepare her.
Was there anybody else who said that who dis sketch was accurate?
Yeah. Mr. Trump, Jerry Trump, he was the other janitor out there with the lady janitor?
Yes.
And so he was up there testifying, and he's in jail at this very moment while he's testifying for child molestation charges.
Oh, gosh.
So there he is. But the thing is, he came across so credible that he identified it as Ryan.
Oh, wow. And so yet that's another strike against Ryan, though. And for sure, he's probably not buddies with the other guy anymore. And now here he's got more evidence supposedly piling up against him.
Right. Can you imagine Ryan sitting there watching Chuck show a strangling with a belt with the foot on the back, and even looking up to the jury and telling it to him when it was kind of proven that that Kent was hit with a blunt object, like a tire tool.
That's unbelievable. It sounds like they were just bound and determined to clear the case.
They were. They wanted it gone.
Somebody that was willing that they could manipulate to a certain extent.
And even Shauna, the lady janitor, she said, they intimidated me. I was afraid. The prosecutor and them, I never felt like I could tell the truth. But she didn't lie, but she lied by omission. Because remember what we were talking about one time? It takes a lot of courage to point someone and go, I'm talking about you.
Right. Conviction.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And she was willing to do that, to say it is not him. Because Chuck took a plea deal, and that's why he's having to testify against Ryan, because he got 25 years on his plea deal, only mostly for the robbery that didn't happen. Now, here's Ryan, and he gets 40 years, 30 for the killing or the murder, and 10 for the robbery there. So he's got 40 years, and the whole time he's saying, I didn't do it. His parents are sitting in the gallery. I know how this feels from just going through the trials and even the hearings that we go through with Brandon. You just feel like you're in outer space and everything's happening and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. And that definitely speaks to my heart, too. I really admired that lady who was the janitor and her coworker for standing up and saying, yeah, they scared me, but I still am here to tell you what I think is right. Nothing burns me up any more than somebody being falsely accused or lying.
Right.
Lying about something small or lying about something big. But when somebody's life is on the line and you're just trying to clear a record and you're willing to destroy two people and convict people who aren't necessarily guilty and impacts their families too, not to mention the murdered man and his family, I just think that's reprehensible. That is as low as you can go, in my opinion.
Right. Well, you have a firm grip of the obvious with all that, because everybody's family is affected, even Chuck's, and especially Kent's. He's the main one. But while we got all this going on, then at some point, Chuck decides to send a letter to Ryan and go, have your attorneys get in touch with me.
What? Why?
Yeah, because during this middle of this, 48 hours did expose or a episode on this because it's so what the F'sville.
Right.
You know,
Right. And by F, she means Feezy.
That's what I mean.
Wow. Well, thank God, because it sounds like that sparked the interest of another attorney that said, hey, I'm interested in taking this case. And that's when things really began to turn.
Right. Because she looked and she said, he wasn't even prepped, because that little awkward moment where he giggles and says, yeah, Chuck's a odd guy or a weird guy, and he said it like that, and then a prosecutor comes in on him. You think murder's funny? He said, no, I don't think it's funny. I think he's weird. But she saw that. That is what Miss Zellner saw.
Kathleen Zellner out of Chicago.
Right. And she said, if that family calls me, I'm taking this case pro bono. And after you do the math on it, she spent 3,500 hours there. And I figure let's just go in the middle and say $400 an hour.
Wow.
Because we know lawyers can be 800 or 300 or whatever. Not all of them, but I just went with 400. That is $1.4 million.
Good for her. That's my kind of lady.
Yeah.
She's a true justice seeker.
Oh, and she didn't back down. She just kept on. And there were 12 or 13, 14 different hearings and things that they went through, appeals.
Well, the timeline alone just goes on for years.
It does. It's exhausting.
Yes.
So Ryan's still doing this, and he is a good man. I got this basketball here because he said they're such positive people, his family. They're just the Fergusons, the daddy Bill and the mommy's so positive too. They're not married anymore, but they love their son and he loves them. And sometimes when they're talking to him in jail, he'd kind of get a small attitude. I wouldn't even consider it an attitude. And his dad would remind him, say, this is not helping you to be having an attitude like this. Just settle down. He was like, okay. And his dad kept money on his books and stuff, but he was good at basketball. So that helped him to get along with people. And then Ryan, he's just adorable. I love this man. He said, I love chick flicks, but I wasn't about to haul off up in here and go, hey, any of y'all prisoners in here want to watch a Notebook with me?
He didn't want to get beat up or advertised as somebody's boyfriend, I would imagine.
But as cool as life is, his I always call him roommate. His cellmate, he liked the chick flick too. And so they were watching it, and they're sitting there like crying over the Notebook.
Oh, bless them. I mean, I cry over the Notebook.
I do too.
My daughter tried to get me to watch the Notebook the other day, and I was like, I flat refused. I was like, I'm not up for tears. I just did my makeup so nice, to quote Sabrina Carpenter. I'm not going to sit here and sob over this truly sad chick flick. But it's not just a chick flick. Apparently, it's a dude flick too.
It is
so
a
good
dude.
for them.
But he found a way to make things work, and he just stayed so positive and tried to take care of his physique and his body and his mind and stuff, because he said, I knew that wasn't going to serve me well. And I mean, that's not everybody's mindset. But you are in prison. You're at this point in his mid-20s, from 19 to the 29, all his 20s, he doesn't know how to do life.
Oh my gosh, so much has changed. I know. Well, thank God he stayed positive, and it sounded like it really paid off for him, and especially with the additional media attention. And he had a kick-butt attorney that came in and took the case, and all her hard work paid off too. And they realized that they could prove that he was innocent. And finally, they got the court to pay attention. How did all that come about?
Well, Jerry Trump recanted, and Chuck, he said, no, it wasn't Ryan. And I don't even know if he thinks he did it himself or what, but it doesn't matter. This is for Ryan. And Mrs. Trump said, I never sent my husband a newspaper for him to look at a composite in jail. So everybody's coming forward with the truth. And that is why the judge was like, this boy is innocent.
Oh my gosh, what a relief. I mean, so many people fight from prison who probably are wrongfully accused. We see those stories all the time that make headlines. But it's rare that somebody actually picks up the beat of their drum and makes it loud enough to where things change.
Right.
So good for him, good for his family. That's incredible.
Right. Or has to stay in power to keep doing this after years. The dad, he put 9,000 miles on his car in 21 days. He wrapped his whole car with the wrap that says Free Ryan. He had planes fly over because this prosecutor at some point became a judge, and he spoke at commencement exercises. And so the plane would fly over and say, Free Ryan. So he couldn't get away. The daddy is just like epic dad. He's just awesome. And so is Mrs. Zellner. This paper right here, it says, it's over. That's how Ryan found out that he's getting out of prison, because there was a little lag in time that she wanted to talk to him and she wasn't allowed to. So she scratched this on a piece of paper and held it. I'm about to cry. Held it up for him to say, it's over.
Oh, wow. That is incredible.
It is.
And his conviction was finally vacated in 2013. And from what I understand, it was the 14th time that he tried to get this appeal to be upheld, that he tried to get his conviction overturned, and finally won. That's fantastic. That's amazing. But I guess it also means that the real killer hasn't been arrested yet.
Right. The story's not over. The real killer has not been arrested or identified. Ryan went on to be on The Amazing Race in 2022.
Good for him.
He has a podcast called Prison Counts, and it is awesome. I listen to it all the time. And then also, 1 hour after he was let out, he had a press conference, and he's very well spoken. And they were asking him, hey, what do you want to eat? What do you want? And he's just enjoying all of it, looking all around, seeing his parents. And he goes, I kind of want some Dairy Queen, So
I don't blame him. Ice cream's all right.
Right. So, I mean, just how sweet this man is. And he said, I love my parents. I'm so grateful. Not everybody has a Bill in their life like my daddy and a mama like mine. He said that I love them so much, I will be changing their diapers.
Oh, my gosh. No, I love it. And I think it gives hope to people everywhere, whether they've been wrongly accused in prison or just wrongly accused in life in general. It just goes to show you, with the right support and the right mindset, maybe you can plow through and make it. I'm so happy for him. And that's wonderful that he's taken his experience and trying to bring about positive change for others as well.
Oh, yeah. And he's so sweet, and he loves life, and he's just sort of like a bohemian guy. And he's not bitter, and that's what I love. He could be very bitter, and his whole family could, but they're advocates for people that are wrongly convicted.
Just like we are. We try to be anyway, for victims anyway.
Definitely.
Well, Pam, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing this with us.
You're welcome. I'm tired. This story made me tired.
I know. We're going to have to go get some Dairy Queen.
There you go. I kind of want some Dairy Queen.
No doubt. And that is it for Keep Your Dreams to Yourself. Did Chuck Erickson falsely implicate himself and a friend for murder? We appreciate you joining us on this episode of Gulf Coast Confidential. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. And a big thanks, as always, to our director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. Remember, you can listen to more of our Gulf Coast Confidential conversations wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also watch on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel. We appreciate it if you would like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law.